this award in September, and I work in a Microsoft partner in a company called as Insight in Singapore, and I have experience in obviously Office 365, SharePoint Online, and data platform. I do a lot of consultancy, do a lot of deployments for customers, and also do a lot of trainings for the Power Platform, specifically for Power BI, and also for Power Apps and Power Virtual Agents and Power Automate. Okay, I'm very active in LinkedIn, and I also update my blog very regularly. First thing first, that all the things I'm showing you, I have a blog for that. So even if you can't see the recording or some issue, I have a step-by-step guide for all the things which I'm showing you. So you can contact me in my blog as well as my Twitter handle. Okay, so agenda is quite simple. No rocket science. I'm IT pro. I do some development as well, but not too much. I'm not expert like Navdeep, but I do a lot of business applications development using Nintex and other applications, Power Platform for sure. But today I want to show something how we can actually create a custom connector using Power Platform, both using Power Apps and another for using Power Automate. We also see the structure, how the architecture of a connector works in behind the scenes. Okay, and I have two demos, simple demos, nothing very fancy, and one demo is using Power Apps, another using for Power Automate. So at least you understand how the connector works. It can work in both scenarios. Okay, so again, it's a simple slide that for the Power Platform, there are three main pillars. One is obviously Power BI, which is like for reports and analysis. The another one is the Power Apps for mostly for creating your apps development. If you have anyone has mostly worked with the InfoPath forms, it's a successor, and it's actually a very good successor. You can do amazing stuff in Power Apps. Then we have something called as Power Automate for mostly for an automation standpoint. You can do lot of amazing stuff with that. And a newbie, which is called as Power Virtual Agents. And here you can create your chatbots without writing any single line of code. Okay, these are amazing features which you can do. And then I will show you some two demos, how it works together for connector standpoint. And we have ton of connectors, data connectors. You have portals and AI builders and CDS, Common Data Service and all. This is the overall low code, no code solution from Microsoft. Okay, so again, as I want to highlight that call out that Power Apps is for people, something called as a citizen developer who have not experienced how to write code, but they know in and out of the business. And that's why Microsoft, anything which is power, which means it's a citizen developer, people who doesn't know the coding, but they can write the applications with drag drop or very simple stuff with no code or with low code. It's amazing stuff we can do. Okay, and also you can integrate these particular applications in Office 365, Azure, Dynamics 365, and Power BI. And best thing is that you can use, if you have a developer, then you can actually extend this particular connector using developer tools, using logic apps and all. So we can do very good stuff in Power Apps from the end user perspective to developer perspective, or from the IT admin perspective. Okay, so what Power Automate can do, simple stuff. Again, you can do automation. You can do some kind of repeated stuff. You can do actually automation for that. You can have obviously you can have intelligent automation. So a lot of things you can do for Power Automate. So Power Apps is, again, to summarize, Power Apps is building the applications, and Power Automate is mostly for your automation perspective, right? So it's a very two different use case we are talking about here. Okay, so again, whether it's Power Automate or whether it's for Power Apps, are designed for all different audiences. You can have your end users or power users, or you can have the experienced developers who can write the code, and we also have people called as IT admin who control and also govern the entire Power Platform. Okay, so this is the thing which I want to highlight here. But again, simple stuff I'm talking about. What is an API? Now, API is something called as application programming interface, which talk to one system to another. I give a very simple example. That example, I'm using a paper form, but I want to have some kind of form, a digital form. So what I can do, I can actually use Power Apps, which is as an application, and integrate with Adobe Sign. So what will happen that my application will be shown here, and then API as a wrapper will be shown to the Adobe server, and all the data will be actually shown. All the processing of the signature capability will be handled by the Adobe signature capability, and we get a response from the Adobe sign, and then we get a signature from this particular endpoint. So again, it is to summarize that if you want to have talk to one system to another system, we need an API. Very layman way I'm talking about. Okay, so again, why need a connector? Because the connector is a wrapper which API mostly use. Okay, so when you use Power Apps or Power Automate, you can grab, drag and drop, but those drag and drop, whether it's using a SharePoint or using OneDrive or using SQL Server, behind the scenes is calling a REST API. Again, is using a REST API, which end user doesn't want to know. It's a black box for them. For they just you want to drag drop, get some item to be approved, and then it's done. For the end user, they don't want to look into this. But for the IT admin or from the developer standpoint, you can see the code. You can see the code, what is actually written behind the scenes. Okay, it's a JSON payload, which we can do very easily. Okay, so I will show you in my demo how it works. Okay, and best thing is that just not power the cloud solution. You can integrate your Power Platform applications to your on-premises data. Okay, so if you have a hybrid, which many customers have, that they want to have hybrid, they want to have on-premises SharePoint on-premises, or they want to have a SharePoint online as well. Okay, so the connectors can work together, I will show you how it works there. So main thing for this particular demo, I'm using only for the online, specifically not on the on-premises, but you have a capability, through which if you have a use case that you want to have on-premises data, you can just install a gateway and you can just communicate. Okay, so this is the thing I want to highlight here. And we have around 275 connectors. Is ever growing. Microsoft is keep on adding new connectors day by day. Okay, so again, Aroh, you talk about connector. What is connector about? How you can use it? So there are three different different kind of connectors you can have. First is the public connectors. Public connectors are where Microsoft have created. For example, your Outlook, your OneDrive, your Exchange, SharePoint. These are public connectors. I mean, say popular connectors, and you can have your own non-Microsoft connectors like Instagram, Mailchimp, or the Trello, or any other connectors which is written not by Microsoft, maybe for Adobe Sign, DocuSign, or Mailchimp. Okay, so you can actually use these connectors. If you as end users, we just drag drop and write the configuration, no code required. So that's the thing. Then also what happens that it's a use case here that a lot of organizations doesn't want to show the connector, public connector. They want to write their own custom code. For example, inside my company actually is multi language, multi locations. You have locations in Singapore, China, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand. So if you want to have a holidays, right? But I want to disclose to the public because maybe in US we have a lot of holidays in US, maybe 4th July and all. but in Singapore have different holidays. So maybe I can use a connector specific for the holidays, right? So you have a customers custom connector for each region you can do. Okay, so this is the some one of the use case we can do. uh, Main thing why we build connector, main thing is because although Microsoft has written lot of connectors, but they're not added for all the services. Okay, for the connectors which are not available, you as a developer or the IT pro, you can write a solution through which you can use an REST API and then connect to your end users and enable them that they can use these APIs using drag drop. That is a beauty of developers, and also you also enrich your business case as well, right? So also there are other partners and ISVs who actually extend. For example, Mailchimp, Adobe Sign, DocuSign, and lot of third-party applications. They already have a connector in place where all the users can use it. Although there are few connectors which are paid and few are actually is free. Okay. Okay, so how we build a connector? There are a couple of simple steps we can follow. First, you build a connector. You must have an API, open API or a Postman connection, or can write from scratch. Then you do some testing using Postman, do the testing, and then you can share your connector with your business users, not for your internet users, your internet or your all your business users you want to use it. Okay. The another one is you can also share it with the public. For example, like Mailchimp or any other connector, you can actually certify it. Microsoft will see whether your they will do some kind of test cases, whether it's your connector is okay or not. They do some testing and then say certified. Okay, this connector works well. But the problem with that is that you must have an email address and some kind of support which all the users can in the globe they can connect to you. You can, if any users if you have some issue you can just email to you. So mostly a lot of organizations don't go for that because it's a they don't have enough resources, have a 24/7 support for that. But mostly we use a custom connector which is much more simpler. Okay, so you can do a lot of good stuff. You can do you have a write very easy description friendly names for your connector so that your end user can easily view it. You can use, again, when you write a custom connector, it can work both for Power Apps and also for Power Automate. Okay, and and we use something called as a webhook, some kind of small web application, and we use something called as HTTP request as a webhook. But you can tell Aroh that I don't want to I want to just use it for one of the applications. So if you use it for only one application, then you don't need a connector. Okay, if you don't need a you have a one use case only, I have to only use for only one time, then best use HTTP request in Power Automate. However, if you want to use this for multiple times, maybe you want to do it for each department, then best use cases to use as a connector. So all the departments, whether it's a finance department, IT department, or management department, they can use it. Okay, so HTTP request is very useful for one workflow, one Power Automate. But if you want to use for multiple scenario, want to use reuse, best to use a connector so that all the departments and all your divisions can use without any writing code. So again, you can use a connector using Power Apps and From, or you can use using a business or using his logic apps. I'm not going to in logic apps part is a quite different tangent, but again today we will talk about how to write a custom connector using Power Apps and Power Automate. So just 2 minutes, I will tell you, and then we go for demo. I love demo. It's a very good thing to show. So what happens that when you do any kind of and you are the end user, and you want to talk to a custom connector. You want to maybe for currency converter, right? So your currency, your host will be your Microsoft Cloud. Okay, and then this connector has a connection ID and the operation ID. Now operation could be your get information from things, or you want to delete an operation. So these are the operations, and each operation have a different connection IDs. Okay, so once I am done, I will get an API from a different website, maybe from weather information, or from Google, or from Adobe. So I must have an API. If you don't have any API, you can't do much. But if you don't have an API, there's something called as Power RPA, that UI flows through which you can use without APIs, you can do it. So it's mostly useful something called as legacy systems where is no API. But our use case is we have already an API. We use this particular API. Okay, and then once we have this credentials and the security, we'll get the information from the API, maybe for from the converter from US dollars to Indian rupees, and that information will be displayed into our Power Apps or Power Automate. Okay, so what will happen that I will call my own API. I will have a custom connector. I'm using Office 365, and I'm using any kind of API, and then it actually returns a JSON information and show the data to the either Power Apps or Power Automate. It looks very theoretical, but I'll show you in my demo soon. Okay, again, there are a lot of connectors which are not available. For example, QuickBook Online, Microsoft not written any API for that. Spotify, if people are using a Spotify, there's no connector. So a lot of connectors have Microsoft not built, but we as a developers or IT pros, we can actually write a connector which can help your end users. Okay, so let's see how it works. So this is the thing, and very important thing is that the REST API are by default are not safe. So we use to some kind of security. We use some kind of uh, OAuth 2.0, or we use some kind of API so that our security is intact. Okay, so we can use. So again, I'm what I'm going to show you. I show a demo, one using a weather API using Power Automate, and second one using Google API. I will give you some use case scenarios which I have done with my other um, customers and all, and how it works. Some kind of gotchas. You have to understand that when you write a custom connectors, it's not immediately developed. It takes at least few seconds, maybe 2 minutes to create. So then you can do testing. So I will show some kind of gotchas which I faced during writing custom connectors. Okay, so let me show you the first demo. So our first demo will be using a weather API. Although we have MSDN API already there, but I will show how we can write a simple weather API, and how we can consume as an end user as well. Okay. So first one, I have this is my Power Apps. This is the where I can just create a connection. So I have a couple of things. I have some apps which I have created. Some apps I have created so far, and our things we have to do some custom connectors. So will go to powerapps.com, and here under data tab, you have something called as custom connectors. Now I have created a couple of samples here, but today I will create something which is from scratch. Now, if you open, you have ton of options. You can create from the blank. You can create using Azure service, Open API or Swagger, or you can use Post. postman collection and all. So one thing I want to tell you that most of the APIs which I've seen mostly have a postman collections. So which means you can have your postman collection import and write an application directly from there. But in my scenarios, in both scenarios, we write from scratch so that you know how it works behind the scenes. So what I will do, I will create a new um, app, new connector, and will define call as Pune. Call as Pune. I put a date here, September. I put disconnect connector. So I have a demo VAPI connector. I click on continue. Okay, can be long. Okay, so a little bit short it. Remove. Okay. Okay, so I want to show you that all the APIs are different. Okay, what the website are bit different. So what I want to show you that this particular API, weather.com, stat.com have their own API and different methods they have. Okay, so I will using this API, this particular function and this API I will using. So you see that they give us examples. Very good that they have given examples, and I can just run the request. So what I will do next, I'll just create a new API using a connector using a weather.com. So I will now when you have any kind of connector, they have four main points here. You have the general information about your connector. Then we have something about your security, whether using API key or using OAuth or no authentication. Then you have definition and the test. So we'll do step by step. Let me go create weather. I have some kind of image there. And when we create this thing, right, you have a image icon, right? This is when you create any kind of Power Automate, it has some kind of banner, this kind of banner. So I will use a default one. I will use something called as um, default one. Let me just show you that one. Okay, so I put image this one. Yeah, so this is the blue color. By default, it's a blue color. And then I can define what this API does. It's very important for your end users to understand what you are trying to do. So if you give a description, it's much easier because the you as a developer or as a connector author, you know, but the end user doesn't know. So very important, give some brief information about this, what this API actually does. So I will use some description that I'm using information from this API, and then again I've mentioned to you that you can use on-premises data gateway if your data is inside your on-premises. Maybe your data have SQL Server and all or Oracle Server. You can still use it, but using a data gateway. For our options, we don't need it. So let me see what's happening here. So here I have something called HTTP. So I will use HTTP and yeah. So this is my host API host. So I just do it my API host. And where is my base URL? This is my base URL. It's already here. So this is the thing. So what I have done, I just created an image for my end users. I put some description. I provide the host and I put the base URL. Okay, don't worry. I have all step-by-step things for you later on, which I show you in detail. Okay, next step, security. Very, very important for any connector that you must have security. In my use case, right, I can they have four options for me. I can go for no authentication. basic authentication, API key, or auth 2.0. Most of the more secure is actually auth 0.0, but I can go for API key. In my scenario, they are using something called as access key, right? So I'll be using an access key. So I already created an API key, which I'll be showing you later. Okay. So first thing, we need a label. We need a label. So what is a label? Label is a key. We need a key for that. So I'll just put key here. I put key. Yeah, I put a key for that. But and main thing is here that in each API have to construct what kind of parameters they're looking for. So they need an access key. So I just copy the access key in my security key, and rather than using the header, I'll be using a query. So if you know that in ASP.NET on any applications, we have query parameters. So I'll be using query parameters and not the headers. Okay, so two things we have done so far. We have created a general information about what this API does. And second thing, we have done a security of what kind of things is looking for. So I'm done with that. The next thing is I'll go for definition. Now, this definition is what Power Apps or Power Automate will use as an action. For example, if we use the get list from SharePoint, so it is an action. So I have to define some action. For that, I create a new action. In this action, I put a get weather, and I will define get weather. Again, very important that the end user must know what this action does. So I put get weather in the city, and this operation ID. Operation ID, which I showed you in my PPT, right? Operation ID should be unique across. So I defined get weather. This is the unique ID. Okay, and with that, now we'll be using this thing in our Power Automate. Okay, so we are done with that. We have to define the definition. Next is we have to define the request. We have the request is your endpoint, and we have also we have something called a response. So let's define the request. So I have defined a request here. Okay, so this is my request. This is my request. This is my endpoint, and this is my response. This is a JSON payload. So what I will do, I just copy this particular URL in my request. This is my request, is my endpoint. So I define get and define my this URL query, right? You see that this thing. So I'm also, you see, I put defined my the access key, my token, right? This is a unique. So I have defined a token and also defined a query. So when it put in import, I got this particular information. Okay, so we get this information. Now for my end users, they don't should know about my access key. So I will going to delete my access key because there is totally irrelevant for them. So let me delete it. But I can define as a city. I can be defined as a city, whatever it is. I put as defined a summary, so it's not required. Okay, so it's not required. Okay, and next I will do, I have defined my request. This is my endpoint, or where my end users will query whether it's Mumbai, whether it's Delhi, whether it's Kolkata. They will ask for the weather information. Okay, this is my request. But the response, we have to define the response as well. So our response will be, again, we got a import from sample. Now the JSON information actually is coming from here. This is my JSON workload. You see, JSON load payload. You see, I have query Mumbai. I can put Pune, anything, but I put this information. This is my JSON payload. I just put it here. Okay, and this should be inside your body. So your response will be in the JSON format. Okay, again, some gotchas here. not all the customers, not all the companies write very good APIs. Like for example, Weather API and Google API, they are expert people. So they have create a lot of good APIs. And so you can ensure that their APIs are always correct. But very important thing that other companies, they don't write a good very APIs. So when you put your API, you might get an error. So you have to fix the payload, why it's not working. So again, if your response is doesn't have a proper payload or proper JSON format, always use jasonvalidator.org, which will give you all the information. Okay, so it will give you that where is your error is coming from, because Power Automate will never give you that information. You have to use something called as JSON validator, which give you which particular line you getting an error from your JSON. Okay, so when you have corrected your JSON information, then you put in Power Automate. Power Automate is not good in testing purposes. You must understand that Power Automate is mostly for creating connectors, but your APIs you must validate from some kind of third-party applications, free applications like JSLint or JS Validator, to check if your payload or your JSON data is correct or not. I have seen so many customers that they give some information which is not correct data, not proper JSON. I have to actually fix the JSON format using JSLint or JS Validator, and then put into my Power Automate. Okay, very important. Always see if your JSON payload is correct format. Now again, weather.com and Google are very good big companies, so they know that your data is correct. So I imported it. Now you see all my response is coming through. You see my humidity, my pressure, the temperature, everything is here. Okay, so we have done third step. We have done the general, we've done the security, we put the API key and then put the definition. Okay, next we click on the create connector. Again, a big gotcha here. Now it will show that after a few seconds that your connector is working. But I have actually wasted around 4 hours in my testing purposes. Then when I do a testing, I do the testing, and it failed. It showed me error that is 404 error. What's happening behind the scenes is that although it shows is green, it shows that it's working, but the connector takes at least 1 to 2 minutes to do some processing. Okay, so what I will do next, I'll just click on the test. I give you some of the best practices which I have seen in my testing purposes. Now click on this particular test. You see, click on this particular refresh icon. Okay, and then wait for the get a new connection. Now we have not add the API key for weather, so now we have to add the weather, the API key. Okay, so my API key is here, already added here. See, this is my API key. API key. I can just create. Now you see, now these are all my connections which I have using in my environment. My environment have a CDS, some custom connector for COVID tracker, everything I have, right? Right. So now I can do my testing that now my connector is working. This is my connector which I've just created now. Just refresh a bit. Okay, this is my connector. 20 second day. This is my Pune connector. Now what I will do, I'll just go to the connector. This is I go here. I go and check test. Now, very important thing, I want to just tell you that maybe your connector takes some time. So best to verify all your screens. This is thing which I've used multiple times for writing connectors. Then all the information are ready. Then put the security. Everything is good. Do the definition. Everything looks okay. But I will also do something else. I will also add something called as a temperature. I put something called as a field so that my end user knows what's happening, right? So I will just put something called as temperatures in Celsius. Okay, I give you what I'm doing this. I just put it here. It's working fine. I click on the test now. You see, now have the connector. You see, it takes some time. My connector is working fine. Okay, I update the connector now. Okay, now I can add the information. I can put my by default we have time. We have done some testing, right? Now my connector should be working now. You see 200, which means my API is working fine. So I've got all the information from Pune, and they also get the location. This information coming from weatherapi.com, and I can get the latitude, longitude, everything is working fine for me, right? Everything is working fine. It's overcast. Okay, so I got. Now what I will do next, that I will create a flow. So what I've done, just want to revise that we have done do a testing of the connector. We put a field called as Pune. Then we create a new field, a new workflow, so that we can use it for our as a business users. So in now, just assume that you are the business user and you want to get the information about specific city. So what I will do, okay, this as a business user, I will go and go to the, I can go to automate it by blank, or I can go by instant from blank. Okay, I uh, go by here, create, and put a Pune webinar. Okay, and then I just click new step. Now they have a lot of actions you have, right? So what I can do, right, I have already have some custom connectors. So in my custom, I have a tab called as custom. I can see my custom connector. You see Pune. Pune is the one which we just created now. I just create here. You see now, that's why I told you very important to have some kind of description. I put a description here. Now I put the weather information, right? So I maybe I'd put Zurich example, so that we know the hard workings. I'm not using the Pune because of our testing. I just put Zurich. Okay, and then I also do some testing whether we are getting some information. So I use something called as compose in Power Automate. Because compose, I just compose compose. The compose action. And I told you that, and my end users maybe doesn't know the action, so they can use for temperature. You see temperature in Celsius. I defined it, so it is, and it's very easy for my end user to see what's happening. So they want to get the temperature of Zurich. They put here. I put save here. Okay, save here, and I do testing. Let me go and test here. Run the workflow. Okay, yeah, and continue. You see, run the workflow. You see, now see it has succeeded, and the value is coming from. So we are getting the weather information from city Zurich, and this is the information of Zurich, and this is the temperature in Celsius. So in Zurich we have around 24 degrees temperature. Okay, now what I've shown you is a very basic. I can do other things. I can get retrieve the latitude, longitude, also delete. Maybe I want to have a multiple weathers. I just want to have Zurich. I want to have other things. So this is a way you can actually use for your weather API. Although this is already inbuilt in Power Automate, I just want to show you that how you can write a custom connector using an API. Okay, now this is not very useful. I mean, this is not very useful. So I give you something more uniqueful, something more useful. And just I close this one. I clear this one. Okay, and for this one I'll be using something called as a Google Books API. Okay, so Google Books also have a ton of things. So for our use case, that we want to get the information from the, maybe we are a bookshop and we want to give users about the books and their ISBN or the author. Okay, so here what I can do, I can just see the volumes. I can query the title of the book, the author, subject, and ISBN. Okay, ISBN could be unique or not unique. Okay, so ISBN, one thing to note that ISBN could be have different things. Maybe it's a Kindle version or paperback or a hard case. So ISBN are always different in terms of for the same book. Okay, so this is something which I noticed here during the testing purposes and all. So what I will do next, I will create another connector now, which is called as a books API. Okay, so again, I do something called as a start from blank. Okay, and I go to Google Books API. I put Pune. I don't know whether I can just go for that. Okay, continue. Okay, so again, we define the definition, right? So what I can do, I can just click on the Google API photo in icon. Then I will do the same thing. I will just define the color, my blue orange, I mean the blue color, and I will define this book to connect to get the books from the internet. Okay. Again, for this particular use case, right, I have to use Google API. So I will just copy this particular part. Okay. And one more thing, right, because they are using something called HTTPS. So I have to use HTTPS. So it's already default HTTPS. Very important thing to note here that there's some volume in the deep here. Somebody make noise here. Okay, so I will using something called as my base URL, which is this one, base URL. Just copy this particular part. Okay, yes. Now, because I'm using HTTPS, right? So in this particular use case, I'm not using authentication, but it's always recommended to use a OAuth or use a API key. So just want to, we have short of time, just want to show you how it thing works. So what I will do next, I will just go to the definition and I will create I put get a book and I defined get a volume from this API, Google API. And this particular price I put get a book. So operation ID should be always unique. Okay, so I'm done with that. Next thing, now problem is with a few of the APIs, right? We have to do some constructions of the request and the response. Okay, for this particular scenario, if I go for this is my request. This is my endpoint that my end user will go for. Okay, so what I will do, I just close here. What I will do, I go to get request and enter this URL. This is my endpoint. This is my endpoint where my all the users will looking for. Okay, let's import. I put the query, but the response I have to construct. So I have already constructed. Yeah, this is my, I had constructed that I put ISBN and put a number, one of the number, so that I can get a response. This is my request, and this is my response. So I can just copy this. This is my JSON data. Just copy the entire JSON data, and I use this one. Okay. Again, you can just rest assured this is the from Google, so they you won't have any kind of errors because they know how to write JPIs and all. So I just click on the import here. Now you see in this response you have so many things, variables. You have country, you have the currency code, whether it's a INR, SING or USD, and the cover, a lot of things you have. Okay, then what I will do, I click on the create connector. Okay, and do a test. Again, it takes a few seconds. I click on the refresh first. Okay, click on the connector, the new connection, and it will open. This is the image which I upload, right? This is the image. Now this one is showing me that is a Google API connection for getting a books from internet. I click here, create, and then it show a connection. This one is connection, right? So let me go to the custom connector which I've created. This is the one, and I will do my testing again. I will do all my parameters, all pages are correct. So I'll do the security, do definition, do the testing, and I can define any book. So maybe I have defined a book here, this one, and do test operation. You see, everything is working fine. So I want to highlight here, want to call out, is very important that you don't rush for creating connectors, because if you do connectors, you might get 404 error. Okay, it's happened to me multiple times. Don't rush, wait for some time and then do the testing. Okay, now I will do a simple stuff. I create a new app. Okay, I do create a new app, Canvas app. From the blank. Okay, now because I have to define the connector, right? So let me define the connector. I put Google. This is the one which defined, right? This is you see premium. What is premium is, which means it's not written by Microsoft, or it's a paid product, but we are doing custom connector. So we know it's not paid, it's a free tool which I've done. So I write a connector, I just use this connector. Okay, and I'll do a very simple stuff. I just create a text box. Okay, and also do a button. Okay, and here what I will do, I will do something called as clear collect. So it's not a Power Apps class, but just want to show you how things work. I put clear collect. I define as a book, and then I will use Google API get book, a query, and ISBN number. So I put a text box, input dot one text dot text here, and I will do the. Okay, so let me define now. This is very simple thing. I will give the end-to-end solution how it works. So I want to define this book. So I have defined an ISBN number, right? This is my ISBN number. Okay. Now it won't show anything. It won't show anything because I've not displayed any information. But if you see inside the collection, you see a number of records here. Why is this so slow? Yeah, you see, it has number of items. So it is showing the lot of items which are from Google. So lot of items from the e tag, a lot of information is coming from. Okay, so this is the thing which I can do. But if you want to use the full solution, is but I've created a simple book app, So if I add, I'll just show you how it works. So this is my Aroh's Power Apps library. So I can just add a number. I add this particular book. Okay, you can extend it. You can add a author, the country, or whatever it is. I just search for this book. You see now, you get the author, right? What now? Just assume that you are the library user. I want to add this book. I want to add Life Amazing Secrets, but it's an amazing book. Actually, I've read it. I can just put it. I can just add the directory, this book, and I put that inside. When I found that this book is not very important, I don't like that, so I just remove it. I can just add. Then I can just sync as an email to the user that this particular number of books are actually is in your library. After 2 weeks, you have to return. So these are the simple applications scenario we can use for the custom connectors. Again, there are a lot of custom connector you can use, but this is using the uh, something that is quite more useful for the custom connectors standpoint. Okay, so how I did it is I will show you how I did it, and this is my the website which I you can refer it later on. The step by step guide what I've done so far, the how to create custom connectors, and the step by step. Then what are the things I have done? Everything from steps I have done you so far. Okay, so very easy. Although Navdeep will give you a video soon, but if you want to see the step by step guide, you can actually refer to this particular blog which I've written. Okay, so my demos are over. Any questions? It's open for floor. Anyone?